Welcome back to the Recovered Republican. I am Brianna, the host and the Recovered Republican. This week, we are revisiting COVID-19, but not the science, not the headlines, but the lived experiences we had. We're talking about the pandemic and what it did to our lives, our relationships, and our sense of who we are. These are the stories that changed us and the ones we're finally ready to tell. And today, joining me is Tracy Martin, and she is the host of Bluer by the Lake. Thank you for joining me, Tracy. How are you?
I am very happy to be here today, although it's really weird to be sitting in front of a camera and not saying, "Hi there, NWI, welcome to blah, 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 blah."
Yeah. You're going to be seen by more of the Central Indiana folks. However, I do have a large following up in Northern Indiana too. So,
Well, hello, Central Indiana.
yes. But I am so glad you got to come on here because you said you have an interesting COVID story.
So I worked during COVID and for many years before for a .com called legacy.com, and they host most of the online obituaries for newspapers throughout the nation and also overseas, particularly in the UK. And as part of that, meaning like if you go to the obituary section of a newspaper and you click, look at all these obituaries, the chances are is that's our data. We provided that service. We hosted the obituaries for the newspapers. And then we also screened the guest book content. And as part of that, we have a unique view into death trends. The data from our database is used by academic institutions across the nation as part of compiling death indexes. People glean incident, they do a lot of trend reporting about, how many people are dying of suicide, how many people are dying of these diseases. And we noticed immediately a sharp spike in deaths very early in the pandemic. And that sort of informed the way the rest of the pandemic went.
Yeah. What was it like working there? What did you do there?
So I did a couple of different things. I'm a writer, so I did marketing for the company. So I had a couple different roles. I did content writing for general audiences. So I wrote a lot of articles on like COVID grief, how to handle your fear if your family members are your first responders. I was really proud of that piece. And then I also did work for funeral homes and reporting for funeral homes because we provided a lot of marketing. They were another major client group of ours. And so I would be interviewing funeral home directors. And I'm telling you folks, all the things about morgue trucks and having to store bodies in outside secure cold locations because they just had no more room, the assembly lines where they couldn't keep up with cremations, all of that was real. And these funeral directors, they were working, around the clock. And, sometimes they were holding services for 3 family members at a time because they all died, boom, 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 right after each other. I got a lot of those small, intimate views about how the pandemic and those intimate views are the ones that really hit. So it was really a very personal kind of experience with it, not being in harm's way. I don't think it would have been, unless you were a reporter, I don't think you could have gotten a closer look at how COVID looked on the ground without being on the ground doing it. So I was privileged in that way.
Yeah. So my experience with COVID is that I was widowed at the age of 31 by COVID-19. Yeah. I didn't know you didn't know that. Sorry. Yeah. My husband was 37 at the time, and we had been married for 17 months. So it was quite the shock. And yeah.
Is this the source of the Recovered from the Republican?
Yes, it is. I recorded a little bit more in depth. I'm working on a book about it currently that is like the full story, but I gave a more in-depth story. It's just I can't go through it without crying. So it's yeah. It's one of those
honey, I am so sorry.
Thank you.
And I know I have frontline my mom worked in a hospital. My brother-in-law um, was an EMT. My sister-in-law was a frontline nurse. And COVID deaths were not pretty. I am so sorry that that happened to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was not pretty. And that was why I started that's how I started kind of advocating and stuff, is that I was on the local news and in BuzzFeed and in the Washington Post, or something that starts with a W. I can't even remember. I did so many.
Oh my God. Wait. I think I remember. Oh, I knew your face looked familiar to me.
Yeah, my name used to be Barry. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Brianna,
So,
just to get this on the record, in case this is anywhere in your mind, your husband did not deserve what happened to him. You understand that, right?
oh yes, I know that. The way that the Recovered Republican kind of happened is that I started, I was being vocal, but I also needed like somewhere to put my emotions, and TikTok was where I did that. And so I was talking about it, and also talking about the realities of COVID, what it looks like, and how the day I saw my husband for the last time alive, I had to help him put on his shoes. He was so out of breath. So it's like, it doesn't matter how young you were, is what I was saying, because he died on April 6th of 2020. So he was one of the first young deaths in COVID for Indiana that was on record. And he was at IU North, and it was just the worst 6 days ever, followed by the even worse time of my life. It's just,
oh, honey.
Yeah, it's just.
If you were here, I would hug you.
Thank you. Yeah,
what a tragedy for you and your husband, so young in your marriage, and to have all that potential cut short. I'm sorry, I don't want to make you emotional, but I'm a kind of a mama bear, and it sounds to me like you did what I did and fought the COVID wars in Indiana and in your community, and it was fun, wasn't it?
No, it was not fun. It was very hateful. It was very hateful. People were sending me, I don't know if you got a lot of messages, but people would seek me out on the internet to send me hateful messages saying that, oh yeah, well, people were saying my husband deserved to die. They said that the doctors killed him, the hospital killed him, COVID wasn't real, that they just killed him, COVID was a conspiracy, was released because it was a population control, like all the gamuts of the conspiracy theories. I had people trolling me on his virtual funeral that was on Facebook.
Jesus H.
Yep. The comments aren't there anymore. I blocked them, is what ended up happening.
Of course. Did your funeral home director help you with that? Like managing all that? Oh, good.
So, I mean, some of it, like the streaming of it, my stepsister actually suggested that, because we could only have 10 people in the room.
Yeah. And that is one thing. So many people, and this is probably something I don't know if you know this or not, but after some of those restrictions started lifting, there was a whole rash of funerals, and we noticed that in our work as well. People still have memorials even years later, because the need for that sort of connection and closure, even provided by virtual funerals, it's still it lived on. People really needed to get in person, but COVID changed the way people manage end of life forever. Now, virtual funerals are still a major component of every end of life arrangement. If you work with a funeral home, dimes to donuts, that person is going to have a stream service, because people want that, not just because they want, and it's not even for the people that are nearby. Those people still tend to want to come together. It's for like the family that are out in, say, California and can't make it out. It allows them to be connected and be present in the actual moment virtually, which is one small perk of it. But if you don't mind, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my local COVID wars. They were not as public as yours by any means. It was really hyper local in my town. And this was long before I was politically active in any way. I was just a person who saw immediately what was happening at work when we're like, why, we were getting the news about, the Wuhan flu. And then we are like starting to run data, and we're like, oh my, these death rates are ticking up, and we're having to add people on shifts. And, nobody's noting this as cause of death in the obituary, but we're getting lots of sudden deaths. We're getting lots of things classified as death of flu. We're getting lots of people dying in hospitals on vents. And, we're seeing that. And we also started seeing a lot of an uptick in the number of people that were asking to have donations sent to the American Lung Association. Mentions of thanks to the respiratory therapists that went up in obituaries too. So that was how we were gleaning things as COVID before people started posting that in the obituaries, because at the beginning, nobody wanted to say it was COVID-19. Everybody didn't want to believe that was happening. But I saw those death rates going up. So I called my schools. I'm like, listen, I don't know if you've heard about this, but this is, I work here. This is real. And I, like an idiot, went on my town Facebook page and said, hey, y'all, this is really happening. I think you should probably start you might want to mask up when you go to Jewel. And off it went. And, I would not be sitting in this chair doing this stuff today if I hadn't fought the COVID wars on my town Facebook group. And I say that I was not on the front lines. I did not go out in the street. I did not serve the community in a first responder role, but I screamed my lungs off with everybody on Facebook, and it just blew up. And there's people in our town that still will not speak to me because of my advocacy during COVID-19.
Which is insane. It's insane. Let's talk about that real quick, because let's just bring it back, because I don't think people realize just how insane it is for someone to have lost someone, because I'm sure people lost people up there that we're talking to, and then to say that it is still not real. No one did that about cancer. No one did that about a gunshot wound. Nobody did that about a heart attack. So why are we adding insult to injury here? Because that was so hurtful as a widow.
I can imagine.
I just don't see why people are like that.
Oh, Brianna. I mean, I've wrapped my brain around that one a million times. And the only thing that I can ever come up with is that they just don't want to admit that you can. I don't think anyone really wanted to believe that something this uncontrollable could happen. And when you're faced with a threat that you can't see, you can't touch, and your only defenses against are stopping your life, hiding, or putting a thin cotton mask between you and the world, that's terrifying. And people's response to that sort of mortal fear, you can either work to do the best you can to mitigate it and connect and support those around you, or you can deny it. And I think that the people that chose to deny it, they had to deny it in such an angry way because they were so scared. I can't think of any other reason.
Yeah.
They won't go with that. They'll deny that fear up and down and right and left, but they knew. You can't not know.
There were so many people dying. Like, I think people forget that there were refrigerator trucks behind the hospitals, because
where was refrigerator trucks in my mom's hospital? My mom is this Midwest Catholic Polish lady who makes nothing up and is modest to her core. But if my mom says, well, I noticed that, we had a couple trucks in the back. They're not food trucks, folks. Those are morgue trucks. They're not making that up. Yeah, nobody wants that.
No, they were borrowing trucks that were refrigerator trucks, not meant to be morgue trucks, but they were using them that way sometimes.
They were, because they had no place else to put the decomposing bodies.
So even in April, when it first started, April 6th, they were calling me. So he died at 1:33, 1:32 in the morning. And the morgue started calling me at 4 a.m. to figure out where to send his body. It was a nightmare. Like that was what woke me up, is like eventually they kept calling me like every hour or half hour until I answered. And I was like, I don't fucking know. I'm 31 years old. I wasn't expecting my husband to die at 37. Like,
oh my God. Well, that's their problem to deal with. But they probably were so.
Yeah.
Did you have to have a cremation?
So I chose cremation because it was the more affordable option, to be completely honest with you. And it was also, and the cost of cremation has skyrocketed. It was like $2,000, but like 5 years earlier, it was like $800. And I'm like, that's nuts.
Well, there's a reason for that too, in general. And COVID really accelerated this change because it once people were in that, like a lot of people did turn to cremation, part of it because there was so much stress about where do we put all these bodies. And, you know, a lot of people were dying in winter, ground is frozen. So in the North, and it was difficult for people, and, you know, they would have had to store the bodies for so long because they couldn't bury them. And they didn't want to, and they wanted to. Yeah. And so and after that, after COVID, people, the people were already trending into different choices with funerals. A lot of that has to do with religious affiliations changing. More Americans are identifying as non-religious, and as part of that, traditional funerals tend to go where you don't necessarily believe you need to have your body in the ground for a resurrection. Those trends have changed. People want more green funerals, and cremation rates are skyrocketing. Right now, they're predicting that cremation rates in 20 years, 8 in 10 Americans will be cremated.
Well, we're going to run out of land. Like I saw this coming a long time ago, because I was like, we are going to run out of land. There are too many people. They can't all be buried. Like, I wonder if at some point we're going to have to say you can't be buried unless you're cremated.
And some landlocked places and land where land resources are scarce, they do that now. Or the price for a burial or an entombment is just so astronomical that people just can't afford it. But in order to offset the revenue loss, traditional funerals beforehand, because often the people would have services there in the funeral home, they tended to bring in a significant amount more revenue for funeral homes, so that cremation rates have risen as a result. Offset that,
it's just honestly though, when you're going through it, especially when it's sudden, the price tag is high still. It's thousands of dollars. And I am just like, it really kind of felt like I was being taken advantage of, because I didn't have a choice in the matter. Like I eventually found a place that was reasonable, but it was like some of these places wanted like 20 grand. And I was like, cremation and like a small like funeral of 10 people.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
And that's part of the reason why people are choosing a lot of like do services on their own. Again, COVID accelerated that, because people like you were like, you know, dude, I don't know if I want to pay 20 grand for 10 people and a live stream. If we're going to be live streaming anyway, maybe we opt to do this at home. A lot of people are doing their own services on Facebook and in different places. You know, the traditional funeral home and the services provided by a funeral home is still very alive and well. And in many communities, they're providing very vital services. But for some people, and they can really help you, a good funeral director can really help you navigate a lot of stuff that you don't know how to navigate, particularly when you're like 31 years old and your head's ringing because you just lost your husband from COVID, and they're calling you at 4:30 in the morning and they're asking, hey, what am I going to do with this body? Can I drop it at your door? Like, there's a lot that goes along with death. And some people really still do need the help of a funeral director. But a lot of people are saying, hey, you know, after COVID, why do we need you? Turns out that COVID really changed the death care landscape tremendously. And we're still feeling the impacts of it to this day.
I'm sure, because I've seen such a high, like I've seen people where they will cremate them and then do their own celebration of life. Like that's, I've seen that more and more, that they don't really have anything other than the cremation to do with the funeral home.
Because either they can't afford it or they just don't want to. They want the intimacy of that experience.
or they want to do like a big celebration of life. Like I did both. I did a celebration a couple summers later. We still all masked and everything, but
Yeah.
it just like it felt like it needed to be done, and it just
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like it's
Very.
something I needed to do. It wasn't as the way it didn't turn out exactly how I wanted it to, mainly just because it was far removed, but that's a totally different topic. That's like a widow topic that is just like sad. So I won't talk about that right
Okay.
now. But are you still in the funeral home business then?
Well, I don't work with, well, I do, yeah, I do still do some support for funeral homes in a marketing capacity. I don't do that as much as I used to. And it's, yeah. And I still do some work for Legacy. And they're still, they're still seeing all the changes. One thing that we were really proud of, we like this has started like right away. One of the first things we did, like traditional flowers. That was something that, you used to send it to the funeral home. You used to send it to the funeral home. And people didn't have a way to send gifts to family members. And we knew that funeral homes would really be hurting because we didn't want the industry to just go under during this time, because we knew, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry and a lot of people depend upon it. So we spun up an e-commerce portal that would help people send flowers and gifts to the family directly. And that was something that could help families that were really grieving, and they wouldn't have had a way of getting those things otherwise. So that was one small thing we did. But oh my God, I'll never forget those days. We started, this is really the moment where I knew what we were facing. Because as being on the content team, we did content for consumers, like people that were signing guest books and, just interacting with our site. And we decided early on, before people were reporting COVID deaths, because in addition to, hosting obituaries, we were participating in data projects to sort of wrap their heads around and manage COVID death reporting with Harvard and a cohort of universities. And so as part of that, we were going through and, looking for certain hallmarks in obituaries and looking for people that mentioned COVID in the obit. And then we had this database. This was before people were collating COVID obits. This was very early on. We were trying to write obits for everybody who had identified anywhere in any death records, whether they had had a newspaper obituary printed or not, as dying of COVID. So we were going on social media and finding those things. And we had spreadsheets. And I'm not kidding you about this, we had an assembly line because we wanted to have a featured guest book on our page as a place for everybody to come in more as a nation together, because we'd done that during 9/11. That was one of the things our company did that we were proud of. We posted guest books and obituaries for free of everyone who had died in the 9/11, anywhere in 9/11, on the towers or in operation the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And we did that as a community service, and we wanted to do something similar for COVID. And so we started to create featured guest books for each of these people on these spreadsheets. And we had every writer in Legacy, and there's a whole bunch of us because we do featured obituary coverage for newspapers. And we had a spreadsheet, and you'd go through and you'd be typing obits, and it was very brief. And you'd be doing this for like 8 hours a day. And I remember this one day, I had this spreadsheet, and it was like, these are not the real names, but it'd be Amelia Gonzalez. It was just like first name, last name, date, date of birth, date of death, state, city, and then state. And it went Amelia Gonzalez, 65, Santa Barbara, California. And then Jose Gonzalez, 62, Santa Barbara, California. And then Manuel Gonzalez, 43, Santa Barbara, California. And then Amelia Gonzalez, 27, Santa Barbara, California. And then I realized as I'm writing is boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the whole family. And they all died on the same day or days apart. And it mowed through them like wheat. And I knew that meant that I had to do everything in my power to make sure people knew what was happening. And the fact that I could not get people to listen I still feel grief about that. I wanted to make sure people knew, and trying to get through to people who didn't want to believe that. I had people messaging me and just saying, "What? You've got to just let it go." And I'm like, I can't. I felt, I don't know how to explain it, Brianna, but I felt this thing in my heart. I'm not religious. But I felt like I can't look at God when I'm done here if I don't do everything I can, because if I don't, I have this privileged knowledge. I have seen things that others don't see and can't see. And if I don't use that knowledge to help someone, to get them to see, then, I mean, I guess that's what Cassandra felt like. I can't describe it in any other way. And it stays with me still. The failure to get some people to understand that I could not persuade them. Did you feel that way?
I came at it at a very different perspective because very quickly it was met with a lot of opposition. So it was like, because people would ask why I would do this, and early on it's just, you don't read the comments kind of a thing. But the reason I kept doing it was because I was like, if I get one person to understand this, then it is worth it. It's like, I am not going to convince everyone. I know that because there are people who are so entrenched in their, I don't know, bullshit, and that they just weren't able to see it. And it's like, maybe it was a scared thing. Maybe it's an ignorance thing. Regardless, I think that people need to look at themselves and see how they responded and what they did during COVID, and see and look at their actions and see if it really was kind, because there were so many people that were not and were actually very hateful. And it's not okay. We are in such a hard time. It's been a hard time for millennials, like since 9/11. And it's like, it's just gotten harder and harder and harder. We don't need people who are everyday people who are not actually the problem in the country. It's the top 1%. Let's be real. It's, why are they so hell-bent on fighting the people that are not actually the problem?
Because when the leader of a political party makes that party's identity about cruelty and unkindness, they followed along. That I 1000, the people that went along with it, someday they are going to have to account for the way they behaved. They probably won't, because they don't want to think that they were responsible for 3 million unnecessary deaths. But the responsibility for that lays firmly on one doorstep, and that is Donald Trump's. Absolutely. If Donald Trump had risen to the moment that was put before him on a golden platter to be a leader and say, put your fucking mask on and be nice to your neighbors and be kind and come together, we would be in a completely different place. But he saw a moment and he picked it up and he ran with it. And this was the result. Your grief, your trauma were the responsibility of Donald Trump's actions and the people that went along with it blindly, because those people are locked into a tribal identity that they can't get out of. Particularly, and I feel for these people. I know it is not comforting to anyone. I don't necessarily believe people want to be cruel or unkind. I believe they are enmeshed in deep social systems where to pull yourself out of that has consequences. Your mom is a Trumpy. Your dad is a Trumpy. Your doctor is a Trumpy. Your teacher is a Trumpy. Your boss is a Trumpy. What happens to you if you decide you're not? So if they wanted to show you compassion, it couldn't. Now, that doesn't negate their responsibility to grow a pair and have some courage, but it does give me at least a little bit of understanding about the conflicts they faced. And the real answer is for political leaders to have stepped up and said, put your fucking mask on. and shut up.
They sure didn't, though. I mean, you
Oh,
look at
they did
Indiana.
not.
Look at Indiana. I mean, Holcomb was the president. Holcomb was the governor of Indiana at the time. And yes, he did a shutdown for 2 weeks. That was it. And then he tried to open it. I sent him letters, tried to call his office, never got a response. Big surprise there. They opened everything up because they were more concerned about businesses than human lives. And that is not okay.
No, ma'am, it is not. I will say, and this is probably an unpopular opinion in liberal democratic circles. I had 2 special needs kids. Well, there's 2 things here. My son had asthma, and we live in Northwest Indiana. Our air quality is for crap. And he was hospitalized for respiratory issues when he was like 2. He was on an event. I saw him and I was like, no way, no how with COVID. We are not playing, not one bit. I'm not taking his chances. But so we kept our kids out even when our schools went back, and they went back pretty soon up here.
That probably saved them.
It took some time. I wanted to keep him out for as long as I could, but oh my God, it was so horrible trying to manage because he was like 6. He could not handle virtual learning. I thought I was going to lose my mind. I was trying to work and handle these 2. If I went to go to the bathroom, he could break his computer. Like e-learning was not okay for any of us. And I thought it was horrible. It was one of the worst experiences of my life, hands down. And I finally got desperate and I contacted our school and I'm like, look, I've got to get him back. What can you do for me? And God bless them. They got him back. And because he was in special ed, they kept him in a separate room. He remote learned from the special education classroom. So he was not in his main classroom, but he did get out and to be with the kids in open spaces, 6 feet apart. So in the lunchroom and out in the out in the gym and out in the playground. And that saved my life because I had to work and I was in a panic. I would have had to pull him out of school. I just couldn't have handled it. So I understand why some parents who were doing e-learning got embittered by that experience. That said, asking our teachers to work in that environment,
I would have quit.
Huh?
I would have quit my job.
I don't blame them because we didn't give them all the tools that they should have had. We could have done, and this again with some energy from political circles, we could have had better HVAC equipment in there. We could have done a lot of things differently.
Air purifiers in classrooms.
Mm-hmm. But, we didn't have money for that.
No, but we've got money for helipads for the governor.
Yeah.
Because apparently that's more important than children's lives. Okay, good. But that's another subject altogether. That's a different
right. We could poke this bear forever.
I know. It's so hard to stay on topic sometimes because there's so much going on.
It's because it's impacted every single facet of American life.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think is interesting is I really feel like people are still operating under this idea that the political landscape is the same after COVID. Do you think it's the same?
No way, no how. It changed everything because there are still 3 million deaths that have gone unacknowledged and unmourned.
Yeah.
There are still people out there denying COVID happened. I'm one of those long COVIDers that gets COVID every minute. My family calls COVID my stalker lover because I get the shots. I get every vaccine. I would snort the vaccine if I could to keep myself from getting it, but I get it all the time. And I still I have to mask at work because people won't. And it has changed. You would know better as a Republican. Or forgive me, a recovered Republican, what tribal buttons were activated by COVID, but it seemed that it ossified some in ways that surprised me.
Which one surprised you?
I thought when people saw people dying that they would eventually come around. I thought, particularly as unvaccinated people died in droves, and people in places in red states that did not, that mitigated less and didn't have it's better, they had got bigger gaps in their healthcare safety net. I thought that they would see those outcomes and become embittered by them, and they didn't. They just locked into denying. And still, I have people I work with that are like, oh, I don't think vaccines do anything. And I think the anti-vax movement, that one right there, who would have thought Maha would come along?
Like, that's just so insane. Like, as a speech language pathologist, it's like I'm very versed in autism and things like that. And it's like, at the end of the day, even if you believe that vaccinations cause autism, vaccinations save lives. So if you are not vaccinating your child, you are essentially saying with your actions that would rather your child die than have autism.
Girl, 2 autistic kids here. There's nothing wrong with my kids.
Yeah.
My kids are bright. This is a tangent, but I'm going to go on it. My kids are both kids on the spectrum. They're both smart as whips. Both had AP curriculum at Munster, which is a very aggressive school district. Both of them are smart and caring. And one of my kids is in theater. They're and crazy politically astute. The other one is so smart at physics, it's frightening. They are amazing kids, and they are autistic, and that is who they are. And if you can't handle a cohort of an entire generation with that skill set, who just doesn't want to look you in the eye and might struggle to understand some of the emotional nuances of what you're saying or not saying, well, then I don't know what to say to you, because I don't know what more you want than that in a generation.
Yeah. I mean, I was listening to somebody talk about this earlier today, and the eye contact thing, they said something that made so much sense, because for a person who's on the spectrum, eye contact is much more personal and intimate. And so if they don't trust you, they're not going to make eye contact with you. And I think that's true, because I see all these kids, and one of the things that I do, it's like there was a little kid that I saw that one of their caregivers were like, they only make eye contact with you. They don't do that with the other therapists, because I was like their best friend. I like try to be best friends with the kids, because then I know I'm going to get the best out of them.
Yes. And you, in case no one has said this to you today, as a special needs parent, I believe, and I'll believe this till the day I die, the people that provide the services to our children, there's a heaven for you. I don't know if heaven is your jam, but if it is your jam, there's a special one there, and you get the massage chair, and you get all the fancy chocolates that you want, and anything you drink or don't drink, you get foot rubs, you get somebody scratching the top of your hair for the rest of your life. You are heroes. I would give my kids' special ed teachers a kidney if I had to. That's how much, because without them, my kids would not have a tenth of the success they have today. I am forever grateful for the work that you do. And I mean that very sincerely. I am not blowing sunshine up your booty. Like, it's, they're all tired of me. Every IEP meeting I go to, they're like, yes, Tracy, we know you love us. Thanks a lot. But I mean it, because I know that there are parents that don't tell you that. Yeah. And the work you do is thankless sometimes. Rewarding, but thankless.
Yeah, it's a fine line to walk, right? Because you're going into people's houses, and that's already kind of like an invasion. So you have to walk a fine line.
Dude, when my speech pathologist would come over, I'd make her cookies. I'm so happy to see her, because she was helping my son. Yeah. She was helping my son learn how to talk. She was helping me figure out how to handle this kid that I didn't know how to handle. I mean, I didn't have any other help.
Yeah.
So, God bless you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's just I've always been a helper kind of person. I always wanted to be like in a helping field of some kind. But I think like it's all kind of like come together, right? Like with COVID and being a speech therapist and being kind of in the medical field and then going into first steps and having these kids and then this administration happens. It's like it's all connected, unfortunately, right? Because we've got to stop seeing kids on the spectrum as less than. Yes, they are different. That's okay. So are kids with ADHD. I have ADHD. It's fine. It's just you are different. You need support. That's it. And the thing is that without that support, you can do so much less. If I had actually had the support I needed, I probably would be like a doctor or something because I just thought I was stupid is what I thought.
Which is
no, it's not it at all. And it's like, I knew what my IQ was and everything, but because it was just so much harder and I didn't know why.
People treated you like you were stupid. That's
yeah, probably. So it's
I'm
just,
sure of it.
Yeah. And so I don't want that for kids. Like I tell parents, just because they're not talking yet doesn't mean they don't understand you and know what's going on. And it's like when those kids start popping out things suddenly, they're like, wait a minute. And I'm like, I was telling you, remember how I said they understand you.
They did. Dude, so Gussie, he needed what he needed was ear tubes. And our speech pathologist she told us right away, dude, she just needs tubes. So First Steps won't sign off on it until and your insurance won't either. You need to go through blah, 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 blah. And they're like, you must go through at least so many weeks before he just needs tubes. So we're going to do this. And then when he gets his tubes in, he'll hear you fine. And, sure as whatever, the minute he got his ear tubes in, 2 minutes later, he could hear everything. I'll never forget this, Brianna. He had his ear tubes and he came out and I would sing to him. And I started singing the song that I had been singing to him since he was a baby. And his face, when he heard my voice for the first time, his face just lit. And I was like, oh my God, that's the first time he's ever heard me sing. And oh my God, that moment is still in my heart. And what's interesting, okay, I know this is off topic, but what's interesting about how you mentioned we need to normalize autism. My kid Gretel was diagnosed at 7, just when the autism speaks mode of masking and teaching masking behaviors was the recommended therapeutic model. So I was doing what I thought I should do. My kid was diagnosed. Both of my kids were diagnosed late, and they weren't until because they hit all the hallmarks, and they didn't get diagnosed until they hit curriculum that outstripped their capacity to manage, which is first grade, which is very, 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 very common. And for my my oldest, they had come up right during Autism Speaks and just the tail end of that. So they, I did what I was told to, and got them in a social skills group immediately because the person that diagnosed them told me that my kid would never know love, would never be in a relationship, and probably live with us forever. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
What
so, I heard that shit. And then I sat down on the ground and cried for like a week. And then I heard a voice in my head that said, get up, get off the floor, and go love your kid. And I did. And so I did what I thought was right. And I put them in a social skills group. And my kid came home from I think the second one and said, I will never go back there. I am not weird. I don't care if people think I'm weird. I will never go back there again. And I was like, oh my God. And the damage from that bad therapeutic relation stayed with my kid for years. I couldn't get them back with a therapist until they were 16. This was 16. It is heartbreaking.
So heartbreaking. Like that makes me want to cry because that's so sad. It made me
cry too. I'm like, oh my God, I did that. I made my kid go there. I trusted those people with my kid. And they told my kid that people would think they were weird if they didn't count how many times they blinked between sentences and stuff like that. So yeah.
Whoa, that's wild. Like
It is, right? Because my kid is smart enough to smell therapy speak at a million paces. Finding therapists after that, it really took a lot. And we did, and I'm grateful for it. But I did not do that with my son.
No,
I decided that my children would be treated and valued as they were. And I cannot tell you the guff and pushback I got about that.
Oh, I'm sure you did, because like they used to tell us to replace the behavior, but I never did. Like when they told me to, I didn't do it. I never really replaced the behavior.
Thank you for not doing that.
Because I always thought that was weird. I was like, they're clearly doing this for a reason. It's like I knew that they were doing it for a reason before the study was done, essentially. And so what I would do instead, it's like, okay, is it disruptive? If it's disruptive, then we need to change the behavior. If it's not disruptive, then it's fine. Like if somebody is shaking their leg, it's not bothering anyone. Who cares? Who really cares?
Why are we pathologizing behavior that harms no one?
I don't know. Or playing like with schools that don't let kids play with fidget toys. Like it's not a toy. It's a tool so that they can sit still and hear what you're saying. It's not, if somebody is flapping and jumping, it's not, oh, good job not flapping. It's, hey, you're 6 foot tall. We can't do that inside because you could get hurt or scare someone because you're big. So we can do that outside. We can do that in a gym. Where can we do this safely? And what can we do instead when we feel that way and we can't do it? What else can we do to help us?
And boom. It's not a special ed classroom, my friend.
Yeah, it's not hard. It's about, and this is what I encourage other therapists to do as well, is to listen to those who are adults who are on the spectrum, because they are saying this. They've said this so long, and it's like there's a Keely, I think her name's Keely. She was on Love on the Spectrum the first season. She's great. She has so much good information. She's done great work in the ABA area because we've known for years as speech therapists that ABA was using old data and that they needed to change what they were doing. But
started at ABA.
Exactly.
Oh my God. So much damage.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like parents don't know what to do. And it's like, I don't ever
they're being told that if they don't put their kids in these therapies, that their kids will never know love, or that they'll, be lonely for the rest of their lives, or they'll form no relationships. And, and to me, that felt like a death sentence. I couldn't imagine a worse outcome in life than to never know the gift of love.
I would say the opposite, though, is true of kids on the spectrum. And they love, so like there's like two kinds of people. Well, it's so broad, but generally I've seen like either kids who don't want to be touched at all, like very sensitive, or they want to be cuddled constantly. They want to touch you all the time. They want to wear your skin. And it's just like, they do. And it's so
envious. I love my kids to the bottom of my core, but neither one of them is a hugger, and I'm a touchy-feely mama. So I'm like, yeah, like those kids would have done well with me.
Yeah, you would have done well. Yeah, it's like those kids are nice sometimes. Like they need that input, but not everybody does. It's like about being hyper and hyposensitive.
Yes.
It really is. I would love to talk more in the future about the autism thing. I didn't know your kids were on the spectrum, and I think that we could have some really good conversations about it. But tell everyone, yeah, it would be fun. We'll have to schedule that. But tell everyone where they can find Bluer by the Lake.
So I am on Substack, and you can also find me on Spotify, YouTube, think someplace else, all the normal, but yes, I'm on Facebook and TikTok, Instagram, all the good places that you want to find somebody.
Absolutely. And I am also part of the group as well. So you can also find the Recovered Republican there. Go to Substack and look up the Indiana Progressive Network. That is where most of our stuff will be. You can still find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the social medias as well. But again, Tracy, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it has been so much fun. It's lovely to be on this side of the camera, and I really hope, I can't wait to hear the rest of your series, because I believe our nation is ready to start talking about COVID. Somebody's got to start those conversations. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. I'm happy to. I mean, I think that I have the experience and grief awareness to do it. So I figured I can. Yeah, who else is going to do it? So, well, everyone have a great weekend.